If I told you just a few key moments built an entire business, would you believe me? Today, Creative Senior Planning is a software that helps manage the entire backend of senior care facilities and does over $250,000 in annual revenue. From how the co-founders Jay and David met, to the couple of times that 99% of people would have quit, to having one particular group partner with them, the story of Creative Senior Planning is not only an incredible story of perseverance, but also a story of how to build an efficient revenue strategy. So without further ado, let's jump into how Creative Senior Planning went from 0 to 250K in annual revenue. Jay started his career with what seemed like a great standard lawyer career and life. He was a lawyer at a larger firm for 20 plus years, and life was pretty good. But then Jay worked with one particular customer, David Ostis, who helped manage senior care facilities in Iowa. David was a client of Jay's law firm and worked closely with Jay while he was there, particularly on one case where a family member was stealing money from their mom that was supposed to be paying for their senior care. From this case, David approached Jay about him leaving the law firm to be more internal for his businesses and to start on a new business idea based on their experience with that particular legal case. That new idea, it was to essentially put Jay out of work. This idea that David and Jay came up with building a software that could check if someone had the funds ready to go to pay for senior care. That way, everything runs smoothly and a lawsuit between any party isn't needed because they were proactive with it. One major problem: neither Jay nor David were techies. They can make a computer function, but building software wasn't their forte. Here's Jay to explain what happened next.
I laugh a little bit just because originally, because David and I are neither techie really. I mean, I'm proficient at computers. David is really not. He's just maybe an end user. And so we hired a firm just simply because we had heard this firm was good from people that we knew. It turns out they were terrible, and turns out they couldn't do what we asked them to do. They couldn't build a software platform. They were only kind of web designing. So we spent a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of heartache down that rabbit hole. And when it came time to rip off the Band-Aid or take it behind the shed and shoot it, we were introduced to Erin. And Erin and her team, at the time, she was Entrepreneurial Technologies. There were 6 of them, plus Erin, there were 7 total. And she was referred to us by someone who was very knowledgeable in the industry. And they said, well, she could at least take a look at what these other guys have done, what you paid $250,000 for, and see if it's worth anything. And she looked at it and she said, it's not, but we can make it for you. It's going to cost you X. And it's going to cost you this much time. So are you willing to do it? And David and I had a very deep and difficult Thanksgiving weekend where we decided this is a great idea. We can do this. So we ripped the Band-Aid off and started, I think in that was Thanksgiving of 2018. And so we decided to do it. So in 2019, we started, and Erin and their team delivered, and we were ready to go to market, if you can believe this, in November of 2019.
So yeah, Jay and David spent $250,000 yet still didn't have anything to sell. And there's no way I would have kept going at this point if it was me. And if you've watched other deep dives on this channel, you might be thinking to yourself, Aaron Rolandhagen sounds really familiar. That's because I did a deep dive on Aaron's company, People Friendly Tech, as one of my very first deep dives. As Jay mentioned, they finally had their product at the end of November of 2019. You can probably guess what's coming next. As they were launching their product at the start of 2020, they had hired a team and were excited to get started. By March of 2020, they couldn't even make a sales call. There was no point. And even with that, Jay and David continued to double down on this idea. In some ways, the pandemic made them do something that was actually really beneficial for them: slow down. Here's Jay to explain their process of moving the business forward during the pandemic.
For the first 9 months of COVID, there was no in and out. There was no meetings. There was nothing. And then we got a little bit loosened where we could go in, and on a very limited basis, we were able to start doing it in 4 or 5 buildings. So we had 4 or 5 beta testers who were doing it kind of live and who were doing it, who were checking, not only was it great because they're essentially debugging the software for us, but it was great because we could check in real time how long it would take them to do the background checks we could check in real time if a person didn't have a payer source, how long it would take us to do the Medicaid application, which we also digitized, which is a real key, because then we just put all the information that we have in the software into the Title 19 application, and we can send it directly to the state. If they thought they had insurance, but maybe they didn't, we could have that figured out. And we figured out how our back office procedures would work, how we kind of ranked those. And so we were able to do that all in real time, which is kind of a real blessing in retrospect, for about 4 or 5 months. And then when we were coming out of COVID, after that period of time, we tweaked the software with the stuff we were finding out in real time from our beta adopters. And then we were able to go to market to hire some folks.
I know it's easy to be impatient in growing a business in the early days. I've been there so many times. This is such a great example of why it's important to get the bottom of your sales funnel right first and understand all the actual needs of your customer, and then scale up. If you scale up the top of your funnel without understanding the bottom of your sales funnel, all you're doing is scaling up a bad experience and product. It's a waste of time, energy, and resources. And within that last clip of Jay, he made a very small comment about the Title 19 application. And if you're not familiar, Title 19 is Medicaid, a key part of funding senior care for so many people in the United States. In 2026, over 7 million people in the United States over the age of 65 were actively using Medicaid for healthcare and senior care expenses. And as you might imagine, a senior applying for Title 19 can be a bit tricky because it's a legal application, and having it done online for anyone senior isn't always ideal. And whether or not they plan to use Medicaid, all the facilities need to confirm whether or not these seniors have funding sources to get paid. It can be quite the process with Medicaid, Social Security benefits, personal income sources, or outside family resources. All in all, there's a lot of different potential funding options for any senior care facility to confirm or to not confirm. What Jay didn't know until he started talking to customers was that this is their entire entryway into gaining trust with customers. Here's Jay to explain why they give their support to seniors and facilities to confirm all these funding sources for free.
We thought, for a simple subscription fee, less than $500 a month, we can do all of that for you. And every resident, every time. And we ran into all kinds of resistance because nobody wants to pay a subscription fee that's going to cost them $6,000 a year, where it's just, oh, well, I already do that. What are you guys doing? So we kind of had to flip it around and think, okay, I know this is an itch to scratch, but the itch comes when the person is not got a payer source and they haven't applied for Title 19, either because they don't know how, or it's just been delayed, or the family's not responsive, or they kind of ghost you. They kind of, oh, we don't have any money, so we don't want to go tell the church we don't have any money. So all of those things kind of wrap up into a ball of pain for a nursing care provider, where if we can solve that problem, then it alleviates everything else. And so that Title 19 became kind of the gateway, which we didn't anticipate at first. We thought that was just an extra service we could provide when we were confirming all these other payer sources. Turns out that's kind of like, oh, yeah, okay, fine. And then now our salespeople, when we go into a building, sure, we talk about all the things that we can do on the backside, but really we lead with, revenue management and revenue streams and where are your paid points? Well, it's these people that come in and they claim they have money, but it turns out they don't, but it takes us a while to figure that out.
I would have agreed with Jay and thought that the pain point was obvious to their customer too, and that this would be a relatively easy sell. However, after Jay explained the process and the entire customer journey, it made more sense why it wouldn't be an easy sell right away. This free funding confirmation tool builds trust with senior care facilities out of the gate. And then with that trust and reliability, it's so much easier to then say, we can do a lot more. And then they can go get the sale from the facilities. With a pandemic and everything that goes into senior care, having trust with someone is a bigger deal than it might be compared to buying someone's marketing services or just a candy bar at the store. With this freemium model in place, Jay and David hit $250K in annual revenue 2 years after having their product built out in November of 2019. So that's the high level story, but let's jump into more of the revenue strategies in a deeper way. Here are the 3 specific main revenue strategies. The first one is a freemium model that we've talked about a little bit about it already. And in a lot of ways, I see this as just a really great lead magnet. Instead of having a digital download or some other resource, it's their tool itself essentially, or at least one part of it. Having this be their lead magnet leads to them probably never creating a new one ever again. It's perks of having a robust, great lead magnet that tackles a very clear need for your target customer. No matter how this free tool is presented, it hits a pain point so strongly for the target market that it opens the door pretty easily. If they're at an event, sending information about it in an email, or even someone else referring to them to a potential customer, it's a pretty simple pitch. The second revenue strategy is partnerships. And one of the interesting things that the creative senior planning team figured out after they got this free tool completed was that it scales really nicely. And luckily, they found the right partner to scale with them. With their free funding sources confirmation tool, the Iowa Healthcare Association ended up partnering with Creative Senior Planning to share that to all of their members. The Creative Senior Planning team gets distribution, but they also get a stamp of approval from their industry association, which I would guess in a lot of ways automatically gets them a lot of trust built up front in any conversation that they have with a potential customer affiliated with that association. This last revenue strategy is relationships. And this entire business is probably the classic case of someone being in the industry for a long time, seeing a pretty critical problem, and then building a business to solve said problem. And Jay and David were in this industry for a while before starting Creative Senior Planning. They had gone through all the litigation and seen this problem firsthand. And with Jay's experience representing groups and David knowing other operators of senior care facilities, it was pretty easy for them to go to those people that they had relationships with and ask, will you be a beta tester for us? Especially if Jay and David had any conversations with them previously about this specific problem that they solved with Creative Senior Planning. Jay told me that this was the main way they got the ball rolling with beta testers, which then led to the freemium model, which then led to the partnership with the Iowa Healthcare Association. This entire revenue strategy stack is it's a really great model for how revenue strategies can work together seamlessly and not be much additional work in the end. It's simple, efficient revenue strategies rather than trying to every single strategy under the sun. If you found this video helpful, I would love it if you can give it a like. And if you're looking for more content like this, check out the quarter newsletter in the description of this video.